Good evening, welcome back to Streetcar Shenanigans YouTube channel. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from all of us here at Streetcar Shenanigans. And we are happy to bring you another episode here Thursday. We're trying to stick with that Monday, Thursday, and it's working. So today we are still working on the Eleanor car, unfortunately, but we're going to show you what we've accomplished this week on it and what we're going to be doing today before we go home with our families for the next couple days. So that's what we're working on today, is working on the GT500E and fixing the underside and suspension. If you haven't seen the debauchery that happened on this car, I'll put a link down in the description below that kind of outlines what it looked like prior, and now you'll see what it looks like currently. All right, let's just get right into it. The Fox body, we have the panels all tacked in. We're waiting for the adhesive to glue that back panel in. And we got the glass removed, so that thing is getting ready. It looks like a bomb went off in it. But that's what happens when you have to go to paint. So let's go to today's subject. Our goal is to really get this thing on the dyno next week, even as soon as this weekend, to get it over to ASSC. But the last few things we have to do are fix the suspension and finalize the exhaust. Now, Dan and I have been working quite a bit on this all week to get the exhaust finished. So I don't know if we have any video. I'm sure you guys can see in the background. We didn't really address it directly, but it had this JBA side exit exhaust deal on it, and they added some vacuum actuated cutouts like halfway through the muffler, which I don't think were probably not very effective. I mean, when we drove it, we couldn't tell, when Mike, the owner, took us for a ride in it. So what we decided to do was ditch that entire setup, just scrap the cutout idea because it's not really necessary, and we went to make our own side exit. So what we ended up using was MagnaFlow stainless bullets, some vibrant tubing, some V-bands, and now all of this is removable, unlike the previous setup. So that was all welded to the rear suspension that we're going to be working on today, and it was just stuck in here. We had to cut it all out in order to service the suspension, which is what was the main issue, and then that snowballed into putting a new catback, essentially, exhaust system on it. So the only thing that's left with this, now that it's all done, is that we need to put some kind of hanger on it. So the back end doesn't have any hanger. It sits in the torque boxes, and we want it to be a little bit more solid than that. But you can see, we kind of cut theirs off here, and then everything back has been redone, and then it's a lot lighter too. And then we got it into the tips. The tips aren't completely finalized yet, but we are able to get them just about perfect, which is good. So they'll end up right where they were before. But for the main attraction, we're going to be doing the rear shocks today. So you can see that this bar has already been out. You guys saw in the last video us welding it up and kind of bridging some of the gaps that was in this design, and everything's ready to get welded in. So the main hurdle has been how we're going to mount shocks in this car. I think that this is like a Fox body housing, and the pockets are pretty wide, and that has led to some difficulty in the shock angle and the location without creating a binding issue. You can see they had a binding issue before, and they just kind of hacked that off and sent it, which is not what we want to do. So we'll probably end up cutting this down to clean it up some more. Maybe nip off this whole top like that. I just cut myself on that. That's nice. So maybe take off an inch here. This is a mock-up stud. We were trying to figure out how to mount the shocks. We have a top mount, and that's what you guys are going to see us figuring out today. The levels on here to make sure that the body and the axle are even, which it is. So we're done with that. And next is I'm gonna start mocking up the AFCO shocks that we got for it and the mounts that I think are gonna work. We're gonna end up mounting welding a double shear mount here at the angle of which to go to this top bar. So it'll kind of be on an angle like it was before, but we don't want the spring to interfere with the pocket, which is what it was doing. And that was one of the many suspension issues. We've already re-sleeved all the control arms with new internal sleeves to make sure that the right size hardware fits better. The pinion angle is set, the axle is centered in the car, and I'm at the desired ride height. This is like the minimum ride height that we want to see in the back. It was about an inch, maybe an inch and a half taller than this previous. So this has about an inch of clearance there. Everything has about 1 inch. So the shocks are going to have about an inch before they bottom out against the bump stops. It has about an inch before it hits the rear suspension and an inch before it hits that fender. So they might end up wanting it a little bit taller, but I wanted to at least have the option to get it low. But it will have to ride pretty stiff in order to maintain that because there's not enough room between the quarter panel and the tire for any kind of major suspension flex. All right, so that's what we're doing. I got the AFCOs on the messy bench here. This is a track bar mount from one of our distributors, and that's going to allow us to mount the shock like this in the car, and that's kind of how it's going to go. So we're going to go play with that right now. This is the top mount that's going to go on that cleaned off bar place, so it's already contoured to fit. And then this goes on here. You'll have 2 options for angle. We won't really need that, but we will have that. So if you wanted to drop the ride height a little bit more, you can move it inward. All right, I'm gonna try to set you guys up on the tripod and get you behind the Mustang, see what's going on. Dan's been hustling on this car for the last couple days. So we found out there's a lot of transmission component mismatch. So it has every light on the dashboard on, which was mainly due to the fact that it has a automatic swap in a manual car. They did not change the ABS module, so Dan swapped the ABS module. Now it needs to be reprogrammed. The ECU needs to be reprogrammed so they can communicate with each other. That will eliminate about 80% of the lights on the dash. Dan found a whole bunch of wiring. Oh my gosh, found a whole bunch of wiring mess on this. Whether it was the radio is trash, the gauges they added were trash. There's a lot of trash wiring. So he did take some pictures. I'll put them up right now just so you guys can kind of see what we're working with there. And now he is in the process of cleaning that up and wiring in the new shifter. So now it's got a shifter and a base out of a 14. So it has like sport mode and Tiptronic. That should all work on this car. Did not previous. And what else? I think that's it. He looks like he's working, but that's a more comfortable position than it looks. Kinda. So these are the hot list items to get them out of our hair. But let's jump into the suspension shock mounting. Hopefully this works. I have not mocked it up yet since we got the new track bar thing. I have a feeling that it might need a little bit more modification to them, but I hope it works. So let's get to it. All right, so the first thing is I'm going to take the track bar mount. This is what I'm hoping is going to be our lower shock mount. It will accept a 5/8 bolt in the back, so that's going to be the main stress point. Probably going to end up welding it to the axle, like I said. Right now I just have a 1/2 inch bolt because that's what's going to fit into the pocket. This is just mock-up. Alright, so this is an AFCO Pro Touring coilover setup. We have the spring for it. We're going to start with a 150. That's what was on it. We'll see how that treats us because it is at an angle. So when you mount shocks at an angle, you have to factor in that the spring rate is drastically increased. Alright, I think that is going to work. I'm going to see if I can fit a spring on it. But right now it looks like it'll clear the pocket pretty good. I think we will be okay right there. It's all very close. Everything's very close. This is very close to the track bar mount. This is going to be very close to the pocket. And this is going to be very close to the floor. So we're kind of got to split the difference on everything, get some clearance, but I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be all right. All right, so I'm pretty happy with this. I am going to do a couple things to change. One, this is the shock spacer, so the way this works is this is like a universal shock mount. This kind of squishes where it goes. So I'm going to make this shorter or see if I have shorter ones because it doesn't need to be this. The shock fills up this whole space, so I really only need it to be about like that, almost flush. And then I'll probably end up tack welding this onto there. so it doesn't move at all. So then that'll do that. I want to make that a lot shorter. Maybe I'll just cut this one in half, get a shorter bolt so I have more clearance to the floor. So the idea is that this spacer will be really short, and then the nut can go on there, and then it'll only have about this much sticking on both sides. That'll help me clear the floor pan that the shock is going to sit against right here. Make it serviceable so it obviously can come in and out, and then I could start setting the angle and tack this upper bracket in. I want to get both upper brackets tacked in because then I can remove this whole apparatus, pull it down, pull it out, weld these on fully, and then put it back, paint the areas that we've already welded or ground the powder coat off, paint them up, and then put it back in the car and weld it in. Then the suspension for the most part is complete aside from the axle side. The axle side is going to need a little bit of trimming and cutting and making it look a little bit better because they kind of botched it up. So I want to fix that, and then I also want to make sure that the shock mounts straight and doesn't give us any problems. So I'm going to work on that. I'm going to turn off the camera now, but I'm going to start working on some of the miscellaneous stuff that's going to be time consuming. I don't really want a time lapse, but once we get back into welding the shocks in, we'll be right back. Alright guys, as you can see, I have the whole rear suspension subframe out. This is going to actually conclude the video. We have it all out. I'll show you what we did to modify it. So we have the lower shock mounts bolted in. That's where those are going to go. We're going to modify this, like I said, so that'll look better. And then we have to clean everything underneath here, get ready. We have to weld this spot here and then a couple spots there, and then we got to tape it off and paint those sections black. So there's a couple odds and ends that are left to do. But I just finished welding the shock mounts onto the, let's go over there, onto the bar. So these are the new shock mounts. The old ones used to be here. Now these are done, so now I'm painting the areas that were exposed and the mounts themselves. So it turned out pretty good. I'm relatively happy with the welds on it. It turned out pretty nice. So now I'm going to paint this section with the mount, that section with the mount, and then these welds here. And then this thing will all be black. I'll probably touch up these areas as well. Then this thing will be ready to go back in the car tomorrow. That's going to make the subframe ready to go in the car. Dan finished up all the wiring aside from the shifter in the blue car. So on Monday, you guys will see these cars finished, hopefully. So then that'll be done. We'll show you guys obviously putting this in and welding it up. You guys will see this project finish. You're not just going to see the end result. But this is going to be all I'm recording today. I'm only here for a couple hours just to get caught up on this because next week really needs to be getting that Fox body ready for paint. And it's really close. We got to clean some, we got to clean it a lot. And that's primarily why it's just sitting. We're waiting for a couple things for it, but mostly it's got to get vacuumed and cleaned, and then all the weather stripping has got to get removed. So we'll have a couple days in that next week. You guys will probably see that on Thursday. But on Monday, you guys will see us finishing the blue car, figuring out who's going to program it for us, and finishing the suspension on the Eleanor. Now, just for Mike and Mark, the owners, I just want to show you guys some other things that we've changed. Your upper bushings here are now solid spherical. The alignment of the uppers to the AJE subframe was not ideal. There was a lot of strain being put into those upper rubber bushings, so putting the spherical ones gave it a little bit better articulation. That's going to pair well with changing some of the angles of the geometry that we've done. So I hope that works out well. But this is done, and I'm really excited because there was a lot of time in just putting this in, taking it out, putting it in, taking it out, putting it in, taking it out, and now this part's ready to get painted and installed. So I'm going to wipe this down with acetone, spray paint it. Nothing spectacular to see there. But if you guys are still watching at this point, I want to thank you guys again for tuning into the channel for a quick little update video. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you and your family. And we'll see you guys before the new year. And I hope you guys enjoy some time with the family these next few days. So thanks again for watching. Subscribe down below. Follow us on other social media outlets. And we'll see you guys soon.